Welcome to our webinar. We will be discussing the secret lessons from VEED and Essity, sharing with us how they drove adoption in marketing. So when you start your journey, you're so passionate about the tools. Like everyone's like, what is the tool? How to use the tool? And then I see the journey evolve, like use cases. What are the use cases? And these are the questions marketers are asking. When you figure out the use cases, the biggest question is, how do I get my team on the journey? And that is what we will tackle today. Why AI adoption is such a key skill and a key challenge that marketers are facing. We'll look at Lisa and her example from VEED, that is a scale up, and Gael and his example from Essity. And Essity is a huge corporate CPG. It's a different scale, different challenges, and different toolkits. And then we looked at your key questions that you submitted. Thank you for that. And we'll also answer those. If we haven't met before, hello, I'm Victoria. I'm an ex-CMO and currently I'm an AI consultant and coach. I run Applied AI Academy and Applied AI Co. And we are coaching and training marketing teams on how to become agentic. I also run Agentic CMO Accelerator, and lots of people on this call are from this program. Lisa and Gael are Cohort 1, the founding cohort, where we shaped the program together and we learned a lot. And super proud of the Cohort 1 who gave 100 NPS to the program. I mean, there is no more magic for me to know that Nicola and I created the program that allows marketers to feel confident, to feel empowered, and to feel that they can lead agentic in their company. And this is our team. We are growing. Nicola Anderson is program lead and helps me with program design to guarantee that it's B2B, B2C friendly. Sergio is an AI content lead and has incredible quality control and focus on content execution. And Pia is VP of growth at Athletic Greens, who joined as an AI coach, helping with performance and growth. And if you're interested, join. We're starting September and October cohorts soon. It is fun. It is challenging. You will learn how to build. You will know exactly how to lead agentic within your company. But today I want to talk to you about AI adoption and why it's such an incredible skill. So I run these webinars starting from January. And so far, more than 2,000 people attended my webinars. And 60-70% of these people are marketing leaders. And these are the real quotes that I hear. It's a death sentence for agencies and marketing. I'm scared of it. I'm behind. I'm overwhelmed. And I want us to all understand that adoption is a human journey. First of all, you have to drive it in yourself, but then you have to drive it in your company. You have to take your team on the journey. And it's a very emotional journey with a lot of coaching, with a lot of overwhelm, with a lot of anxiety involved. Another question that I get asked to look, where do I start? And my manifesto is like, you can't lead agentic if you haven't built. You need to start by building. And this is the mapping of a journey. Like if I were to start now from scratch, I will take Claude Cowork is the easiest agent building tool. And I will go on this journey. Can I do mega prompts and context engineering? Can I build a simple assistant? Can I connect it to multiple tools? Can I build and chain different skills and automations? And can I get to the agent? As soon as you do it as a leader, as soon as you become agentic as a leader, it's much easier to take your company on the agentic journey. And this is what the company level might look, right? As a company, you start with a strategic narrative. What are you trying to achieve? Are you experimenting with agentic, or do you want to go AI native? These are completely two different parts of a spectrum of how you can think about your strategic narrative. What are your use cases? And a lot of people ask me, what are use cases? They are known. And if you watch my previous webinars, I talk a lot about like content, campaigns, reporting. There are known playbooks that you can follow on the use cases. Then a very personal question, how do you combine it in a roadmap for your company? And here is the biggest challenge that you will face. It's, you know what agentic means. You have the plan, but now how do you drive it? How do you drive it in your client if you're a fractional CMO? How do you drive it in your team? Because resistance is real. And this is for you a six-stage framework, 6 bucket of tools that you can use. The first, what I do when I do team training for my client, I identify champions, people who are passionate, people who like ask questions. You can see that they're enthusiastic. The second point, like what will happen, you will have detractors. Companies hire Applied AI Academy to run team training. And normally within a 15 people team, I will have 1 or 2 people who are passively aggressively resisting, not building, asking tricky questions, like openly in a group setting. And I can see that these people are in fear. They fear uncertainty. They are anxious about it. So my stance on that, as an external person, it's difficult for me to coach them. I coach CMOs on how to coach their team through AI challenges. Coaching is a key instrument in getting people on a journey. Then there is number 3, learning. It's a new paradigm, it's a new skill. We don't allow ourselves time to learn. We literally think that it's almost like deploying a new CRM. I can just do it. There are lots of new skills that you need to learn. I find that sharing, and this is why you're on this webinar, because we are sharing demos, channel, public wins, sharing within the company, sharing outside the company is so important. Then building and reorganizing the organization. These are 6 big toolkits that you can think about when you're embracing the journey. And on this note, I'll stop sharing and I'll give time to Lisa to share her presentation and to guide us on the journey, how she did it at VEED.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Victoria, for the introduction. And as Victoria mentioned, I was in the first cohort of the Applied AI Academy. And what I'm going to share with you today is actually how I started to implement it with my own team in what was a 3-day GTM offsite. So I'm just going to, this is quite tactical, but I just wanted to give a perspective of how I actually took it and put it into application. So for those of you who I haven't met before, my name is Lisa. I've been an integrated marketing leader for, across 20 years, across various scaling stages, predominantly in B2B SaaS. And you'll hear from my accent, I'm American. I grew up in the States, but I've also spent 5 years working out in Australia and 11 years here in the UK across European businesses. The company I work for is called VEED. I'm in VEED's offices today, and we're an AI video creation platform. So we help marketers create talking head videos for social media with AI. And the reason I'm just giving context to VEED is, as we're going to hear from Gael in a few minutes, is it's a very different business size, stage, and customer base. So we're about 50 million ARR. We're UK Sequoia-backed founded, Series A, and 90% of our business is predominantly product-led growth or self-serve, with about 5% sales-led and another 5% with our API business. So the way that the marketing team is organized and the go-to-market team is quite small for the organizational size that we have. And so just giving you some context of how I kind of begun this journey, I thought I'd be vulnerable, warts and all, and kind of share where I started, because a year ago, I was sitting here going, I really need to do use case mapping with my team. I don't want the marketing team to be looked at internally as the department that's being left behind. And it just was something that I kept putting off and putting off. And I looked at my product marketer, who was one of the kind of early adopters of AI. I'm like, maybe you can run the session with the team. And then I went to my marketing ops person. I was like, hey, would you be interested in building everything for the team? And then I took a step back and was like, this is really unfair. These individuals are busy. They're kind of looking at me going, why is that my responsibility for the entire organization? And I said to myself, I actually have to be the one to lead from the front, the type of leader that I am, and also the type of leader I want to be for them. I feel that I need to be the one to actually go deep in, learn it first, and then bring them along for the ride. And that's exactly when I got buy-in and budget to participate in the course. So each year we get budget for a marketing a team offsite. And this year I said to myself, with such a small sales and customer success team, you can see the numbers in the corner, why don't I bring everyone together? We all report into the CRO. The CS and sales team have great customer insights. The marketing team is creating demand for what they're looking to do. Let's do it all collectively. And as I sat back and thought to myself, this is my moment for the agentic use case mapping, I was looking at who we actually have in the room and who we actually have on the team. And very much like Victoria, you just said, there's a few people that come to mind where they're already saying, this isn't my job. When I'm saying to them, why don't you go ahead and build your outbound sequences? We can give you access to Clay or some of our other agentic tooling. They'll go, that's the demand gen manager's job. For example, an opportunity of like waiting for a landing page to be built. Oh, we'll just wait for the brand team to be ready. It's not their job. They're not interested. They're the ones, unfortunately, who might be left behind. Then you have, and this is very much where I was a year ago, I'm curious, but I need help to get started. I needed someone to just give me the push. And there's so many people who I can see are using AI as their thinking partner, but we're way beyond that now. We really need to be thinking about, how we start and end our day with agentic workflows. And then, of course, we have our champions. They're coming in Monday morning saying, oh my gosh, look what I built over the weekend. We don't need to wait for engineering to do that. I'll just do that myself. So as I started thinking about putting together the agenda, I said, let me ask the team, what do they want to do with their time, 3 days together in London? And I was really surprised because I let them pick 3 options out of 17 people. My survey uptake was really, really low, so frustrated with that. But then secondly, what's highlighted here is AI workflows and automations, use case mapping, and the second one was building. And there was a little bit more interest in building, but they very much wanted to do what we always do. Talk about the product roadmap, talk about how we can build pipeline, talk about demand creation and, fun ideas. And I said to myself, actually, in fact, one of them said in the survey, I feel like AI stuff is stuff we can do online and it's not really appropriate for in person. So I said to myself, guess what? The agenda of our 3 days together is this: building an agentic go-to-market motion. I wasn't going to wait any further. I wasn't going to let them tell me how we're going to spend our time. If I'm the one who, needs to show this from the front, then we're going to build our entire 3 days around how we can do this in practice. Now, the reason I'm sharing with you the agenda is we didn't have 3 full days. We had a half a day, a full day, and then another half day. And so I spent the first half a day giving them context and giving us time to understand what problems we're looking to solve for. The second day, we had a couple of hours to build. And the third day was like show and tell and celebrating that. So I'm just going to spend a couple more minutes kind of walking you through how we actually facilitated that as a team. So first off, I wanted to set the tone. I gave everyone a pre-read. I think this is quite typical, something you would expect for an offsite. This was a suggestion actually that Victoria gave within the Applied AI Academy. And I like this example because I was very conscious that I was inviting not just marketers to this a couple days away, I was inviting success and salespeople as well. And so I wanted all of the context to be relevant for everyone. And I think this was a great episode that also gave examples that were relevant for sales and success as well. I remember they all walked in the first morning. We're all really excited. We kind of have bleacher stadium seating in our office. And I'm like, great, raise your hands. Who's gone ahead and listened to the episode? What are your thoughts? And no surprise, those people who think AI is not my job didn't listen to it. Also, those people who are already miles ahead building didn't listen to it. The majority of the people who were prepared for these 3 days were the people in the middle, the people who were really curious but unsure where to get started. And the feedback they had was it put them in the right mindset to actually start to build. So as I mentioned, we did 2 sessions. The first one was context and mapping, and then we became builders. Now, I'm a busy person, as I'm sure all of you are. It's the night before. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I've got to put together slides to give them context because they're all at different levels. I don't own a stack of content that talks about, what does becoming an agentic AI team mean? And so I thought now's a good time to turn to my friend Claude. So I went into my Claude co-work and I obviously prompted it, talked to it, gave it a sense of what I thought I wanted to achieve with the context setting. I asked it to do some deep research, but I also had a golden ticket up my sleeve. Because I had done the Agentic AI Accelerator, I actually had all the markdown files that Victoria had produced through the course. So after I had sort of set the pace for what I wanted the content to be, I actually asked Claude to go and pull from those files as well to create my curriculum that I wanted for my offsite. Luckily, and I see someone's marked this up here. I don't know who, down at the bottom, I also had our brand guidelines loaded into Claude Design. So what would have taken me an entire week typically to put together, an hour before, the night before, I was able to create the presentation I needed to give my team context. I'm just going to share with you 3 to 4 slides from what that was after we kicked off the day. The first was actually making sure that they understood that this is not about more work for them. This is about changing their mindset so they become the ones directing AI to do the work. And I think that was the first kind of mental shift that needed to take place. The second was that we all are starting from a problem. Many people hadn't yet logged into our Claude Cowork team account. Many of them were still using their shadow logins to ChatGPT or not necessarily our business Gemini account. And so I said, guys, don't even think about that. Think about your day to day. Think about the challenges that you're experiencing. That's what we're going to be working through over the next 2 to 3 days. I posed these questions to them to really start thinking about where they can spot automation in their day-to-day work. What is sequential? What is reoccurring? Where are you using other tools that we likely could connect into our workflows? And where's the boundary? Where are the lines? Where are the things that you just simply wouldn't trust AI with? And it's very important that you keep human in the loop. I then also walk them through this framework, which very much is what Victoria shares in her course. Sorry, I'm killing a fly that just keeps buzzing around my head. And these kind of 3 layers of AI capabilities, from assistant, something that will help you think faster, but it's kind of a one-to-one communication, an automation, which is more of a linear workflow, often with human in the loop, and then an agent runs autonomously and creates its own feedback loops. And so as I'm sharing this content with the teams, I wanted to make sure that they could contextualize this for their job. So I gave them an example of each. For example, the assistant was thinking of meeting follow-ups, right? Everyone's in meetings. Everyone has them transcribed. We're big granola users here at VEED. And so the example was simply, you have your meeting transcription, you put it into your Claude, it may draft a response or give you a summary to upload into your CRM. And that's a very, very simple use case. Another example at level 2 is automation. A real example is for sales, a discovery call can go all the way through to a signed proposal. So the AI can read your call notes from your transcript, draft the proposal, or even your deck using Claude Design. At that point, you would need human in the loop for sales to kind of approve it, vet it, make sure the pricing and all of that is right. And then it can automate the send for you as well. And then the third example I gave them before we kick things off was the agent. Thinking about account intelligence in this example. So an agent can monitor, a customer's usage, give it an account health score, draft an engagement letter coming from the customer success manager, and then flagging and updating all of those signals directly into a CRM. So it's now time that we've finished the presentation. They had about 20 minutes of context, and I wanted to start mapping. Now, again, the most important thing about mapping, and this is where I also had a personal kind of brain dilemma of my own. I thought, oh my gosh, how do I actually do this mapping? I think I messaged Nicola and I messaged Victoria because I said, how do you guys often do this? I wanted to use Miro because I knew if I used Miro, I would have an artifact. I would have a tool that I could easily export from and then create, a spreadsheet or a plan from. But I didn't fly 17 people to London to sit in Miro all day. And so what I did is for the initial concepting phase, I took sticky notes and notepads and pens and markers and put them around the room because I really wanted the team to work collaboratively and, again, to think about the problem they're looking to solve and not go straight into solution mode. The idea was that we map, then we classify in Miro and plot before we go ahead and build. So I had this up on the screen because I wanted to make sure that they, again, had real examples of real problems. And I set them off. They had 15 minutes to go ahead with their notebooks and start thinking about what problems they have that are repetitive, annoying, wish I never could do it again, slows down revenue. Over on the right, the M stands for marketing, the S stands for sales, the CS stands for CS. It was amazing to watch. They started to pair off, they started to go off in groups, and they were just, feverishly, as was I, scribbling down all the things they could possibly do. After that, we regrouped and it was time to go in Miro at this stage. We, as you would expect, mapped everything against feasibility versus value. What are the quick wins that we think are easy to build, strategic bets that we might need some investment in, versus just low priority stuff that maybe would be helpful for you, but is it really going to move the needle on your day-to-day if you're going to have to pick your trade-offs? Again, at this point, we're not talking about tools at all. I said to them, I don't care if you know how to do it. I just want to know what problem you're looking to solve for. it got really fun because at this stage, people are putting dots on each other's things. They're thumbs upping them. They're kind of doubling down to reinforce, okay, these are the problems we're all actually feeling collectively as a unified go-to-market team. Once we finished that, it was the end of day one, believe it or not. That was probably only a 2.5 hour session. And I asked them just to think about the one workflow that they wanted to build at this stage, because tomorrow we were going to build one together. We came in the next day. Everyone shared what they were going to build. If they had an opportunity to pair up with someone because it was a similar idea, we encouraged that. For some people, it wasn't even about building, and I think setting the expectation that getting a perfect prototype was not what we were looking for. You could simply draw out what you wanted to do and talk through the workflow, and that would be acceptable. But what they accomplished literally blew my mind. And I was there building, and my CRO was there building. And I think that was just another example of we weren't in the corner on our laptops. We weren't on our phones. We were actually getting involved hands-on with the team. So now I'm just going to take a couple more minutes and show with you just 4 different use cases that came out of that build session. The first is at the assistant level. Very, very basic. But I run influencer marketing here at VEED, and our influencer marketing manager physically does linear regression analysis on her influencer marketing program manually. She built a skill in Claude Code where she literally just uploads the CSV of the impression data, and she's able to forecast and share out the impact at a channel level. Claude's spitting out not only the month-to-month comparisons, but also a PDF report that she's able to then send to the leadership team. At the automation level, this is something I built with my team, and it was product campaigns. As an AI company, we ship new product features weekly. As a marketing team, I think we're pretty well organized, but so much of it was being done manually. The product team uses Linear to log their product updates. They often will write a short brief, with all the information about the product launch. We connected that Linear to Notion where we do our marketing planning. We also made sure that there was a Slack notification to let us know when a new product briefing was coming in. Claude was able to then rewrite that product information into our marketing briefing template, which you can see an example here on screen. At that point, there's human in the loop to make sure the information is represented as best as we would expect. Then we ran the messaging skill that was built, and that turns it into creative copy. Human in the loop to make sure, again, it's not just only the right tone of voice, but it's actually the right positioning and, like catchy hooks and things like that we would expect. And then from that, we actually have channel copy that's distributed and written for each channel. This is a huge, huge win for me and my team. Another example was automation, customer story pipeline. My CRM lead works a lot in G2. G2 is very important for us. And we have hundreds of reviews every single month, and we're not doing anything with them. We are sitting on a gold mine. And the biggest problem she had was, I don't know where to start. I don't know who to contact. I don't know who's going to respond. I don't know who I have access to. Now that automatically pulls into a Notion database that she's built, it gives each review a score. If we're able to contact them, it drafts the email and it sends it on her behalf. So she's actually doing regular outreach to our top customers. And then the final example I'll give you is this one. This was a big one, customer success. This is someone who'd never been in Claude Code before. We did the offsite. She sends a weekly report to the CRO looking at customer forecasting, who's expected to expand, who's expected to churn, how the team is going to intervene. I will talk about my live build sessions in a moment, but we were on a session last Friday where she said, Lisa, I've got this Google sheet. I'm updating it manually. And I said, why don't you schedule that as a task? And we were able to connect HubSpot with the information and the right prompt she needed in Claude. It auto writes to her Google sheet every single week. It pulls out any of those high alert clients that she wants to give attention to and auto sends that message to herself, her team, and the CRO. We did that in a live build session in an hour, just sitting together like 2 Fridays ago. So when we finished after day 2, day 3, everyone did their show and tell. Very similar example to what I've just shown you here, except they were actually physically showing me what they've built. The room was electric. I'm not kidding. People were like whooping, high-fiving, being like, oh my gosh, what you've just built, I've just built the thing that starts that process or ends that process. Let's go offline and take it even further. They walked away with new confidence and skills. They felt closer as a team. To the naysayer at the start, being in person was better engagement for this sort of thing than they ever expected. So what happens next? Well, that was in May. We're now at the start of July. One thing that I'm encouraging is continuous learning. So I'm regularly, encouraging them to, but also myself taking that responsibility to share free courses, podcasts, webinars such as these to make sure that the team has access to tools and resources to keep learning. The second is the building. So I mentioned on Friday, I just blocked off a reoccurring meeting. It's an hour drop-in session. They're not always fully attended or attended at all, but it's still my responsibility to make time and space. I'm asking them all to block time in their calendars to build. And as I mentioned, that customer success lead joined me last Friday. There was no one else there. She said, here's the problem I'm looking to solve. We built together for a couple of minutes. We put ourselves on mute and turned our cameras off, built independently, came back together a half hour later, and she had done it. She walked away smiling, beaming, and she's now, experimenting with other use cases she had put together on that Miro board that day. And of course, we want to celebrate. I selfishly want to make sure the business knows that, I'm a AI leader and I'm supporting the team moving forward, but also celebrating what the individuals in my team are building, making sure that they have visibility and they're seen as someone kind of championing the future within the organization. Last comment here is the reality is change management is super duper hard. It took me months to get the time, the will, the confidence in myself to pull this off. And when I kind of set myself on this path, I was like, I don't care if you want to do this or not, we're doing it, right? Because it's just something that has to be done. But have I gotten through that whole list of things on the Miro board and prioritize them and actually action them yet? No. Are there still people who aren't showing up to the sessions? Yes. And I think this is just an ongoing path that we're going to continue to experience as leaders as we, create these agentic organizations that we're looking to do. So thank you for your time. Look forward to passing it along to Gael, who's going to be sharing his experience, and we'll take questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Lisa. What an exact, guys, let's give some laughs because it's a leadership and courage. You delivered to the team not what they wanted. I love the empathetic messaging about no additional work is changing how we work. Focus on problems, not tools, because people get so obsessed. Oh my God, I don't know how to deliver it. So they don't come up with incredible ideas, and leading by examples. Like if as a leader, you just talk and you don't walk the talk, people will feel it. So amazing example, Gael.
Yeah. Hey, first, can you all hear me?
We can hear you. We can see you. That's the
Fantastic.
presentation.
So first, big thanks to Lisa. I think that was amazing. And the interesting thing is, there are a lot of common points because Essity is a much bigger company. Now, I think what's essentially what Lisa just presented, that's the engine, right? That is really the engine of the different sessions that brings team together and create these amazing results. Okay, so and also, I mean, just by hearing the story, it makes me feel wanting to go back to one of these workshops because really the amount of energy and the transformation, transformation is hard, but then when you share it, I mean, it's just pumping you up for weeks. So thanks for putting that back in the picture because it's really essential to that driving of transformation. Okay, so now let me share my screen and go to the presentation. All right. Do you see intro?
Perfect.
That's perfect. All right. So that's the webinar you're all in. So at that stage, normally you must be here for a good reason. And thanks for staying up to now, which was already amazing. So I wanted to share a bit of who I am and my different, let's say, pillars of experience. And that's interesting because it gives the background on how I look at AI adoption and how I look at change, which is mostly both from a marketing perspective and also from a tech perspective. Okay, so I started as a very traditional marketeer in big companies like L'Oreal and Heineken. I had the opportunity to live and work in different countries and different regions, both developing markets, more structured markets. And also as a French person, I had the opportunity to open my mind to a lot of different culinary treats, like caipirinha in Brazil, Dutch bitterballen, currywurst in Germany, and finally Weisswurst in Munich, and with a celebration with fondue in Switzerland. I'm showing that not only because it's very interesting what I like eating, but also because it's a hint at the diversity that we need to manage in a bigger company, which is, this is not only you and people like you, it's already a lot of different cultures, and that adds a flavor to that change management. Now, the second pillar of my experience, I created some years ago a e-commerce startup. I work in other tech startups, which gave me the second part of my life equation, which is the digital part. Then I rejoined big companies to drive what was called at that time digital transformation. And I've done that at Henkel for 5 years and now at Essity for 10 years. Okay, so that combination of B2C, B2B times digital, now at the power of AI, that really created for me a life of excitement, happiness, and learning, plus the opportunity that I had to wear fancy costumes, which show that whatever you do in AI, you still need to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and do really some hands-on things. So that's about the perspective that I'm sharing with you so that you understand. Now about Essity. Essity is a Swedish company. We're a global leader in hygiene and health. Just a bit of size, it's about 13 billion revenues in net sales and 36,000 people. So of course, the scope makes it a little bit different when it comes to driving change. Essity is a company active in 4 business areas. You probably know the brands more than the company, and that's intentional because we focus more on our consumers and customers' brand, such as feminine hygiene, toilet paper, napkins, tissues, professional hygiene, and medical products. That all also to add to the perspective that this is not only B2B, this is also B2C, this is also medical, and AI is actually there to drive transformation and help all these business areas. Now, coming closer to what I do with my team, we are in charge of a team called brand building, which includes, of course, the way we do marketing in this company, how we build brands. That also includes media, digital services, tech products, insights and data, and communication. Okay, so that's the remit of my scope within Essity. Now, a bit of time for a disclaimer. Because of a reorganization, I will leave the company. And there's one good thing about that, which is I have time to actually share my experience with you today. So what I'm going to share is not the Essity perspective. I'm sharing that as a person, and I'm sharing that because I like having done some journey and looking back at what has happened, worked or not worked. So be happy. I will talk in very transparent way to tell you what works and what works less. So what I wanted to share with you now that we know who's talking is what's our AI journey? What has been the roadmap? A very important distinction between pilots and operation, and a focus on processes. Okay, so AI journey, and bear with me, that's probably the most crowded slide on it, but hey, as the name mentioned, it is a journey, and it's a human journey. It's more than a journey, it's an adventure. The first thing is find the champions. Lisa also mentioned that, but Essity is a much bigger company. Now, I'm sure that in any company, you will have the champions, the person who are passionate about AI, the persons who do that over the weekend, the person who have built something. So this is the best way to start, is find them and start talking to them. The second part is what I call the kindergarten. And kindergarten, that's very counterintuitive with big companies. This is enabling experimentation. That means people are passionate. They will be whatever is going to be completely useless. Most of it will be completely not used, but that's the way to create some fun, some excitement, and to spread, to actually create the movement, okay? And the word is chosen, it's kindergarten because it's experimentation. Now, after kindergarten, and you will see that we raised the level of seriousness, we created a tool enabling visibility. And visibility is every AI initiative in the company. We asked everybody to actually put that in a big shared Excel file. Okay, so it's still pretty ugly. Now it has the benefit of having an observation of what's happening in the kindergarten and is there actually anything excellent or useful happening here. What I've called 3B, and that's a bit of left brain, right brain, is in the very moment and the same time that you're looking at all the pilots that happen in your organization, you have the opportunity to take it from a more strategic perspective and find out the high-level value opportunities. You can do that in parallel, and the beauty is that at some point it will rejoin. You don't have to make it match immediately. It's just a higher level guideline that will help you for the rest of the journey. Next phase, we started doing exactly what Lisa was explaining, which is local workshops. Local workshop, that means bring the champions who are belonging to the same country or the same business or the same organization and ask them to do that exercise of prioritization. One axis is impact, the other is feasibility. It's basically matching what's the size of the price versus the complexity and time and money we need to actually do them. Then what we did is invite the champions of the champions into an overall value creation and prioritization workshop where we ended with voting exactly like we do in an agile project, finding out what were the most attractive opportunities, okay? And here we become much more serious. And that's where the difference starts happening, because now we turned it into 5 choices. And I'm using that word in a very deliberate way. Making choices is the only and best way to succeed in AI, because at some point you need to be very focused on what are the 3 to 5 things I absolutely want to do. And that means I also choose to not do any other new exciting things that will pop up, okay? So making choices, if there's one thing to remember from that journey, that's where you actually pivot the organization. Then what we've done is make sure that each brand or each brand category had an AI strategy. And it's a health check, because normally some of the initiatives are actually reflected in each of the brand strategy. It doesn't need to reflect all of them, because we accept that not all brands have the same needs, but at least it needs to be the common denominator. Okay. And then we end up into celebrating the champions. Why? It's because it's a human journey. It starts by the champions and it's continuing with the champions who will actually be the leaders of the change management and the leaders of the strategic priorities. So remember, starts with the people, and with the people, the champions actually make the magic happen. So the 4 stages, if we sum up now that you have the big picture, is experiment. That's what I call the kindergarten. It's fun, it's happy, it's not heavy, and it doesn't matter if it works or not work. Second, we turn them into chosen pilots, okay? And we'll come back to what a pilot means. Then a set of choices, and then what's probably the biggest challenge in companies, and especially big companies, is scale, right? And that comes with a different set of skills and a different set of leadership. Just to bring that to life, I wanted to share with you what we mean by a pilot, okay? And I mentioned kindergarten. This is not it, okay? Kindergarten is free play, freestyle. A pilot starts with a leader. There's someone accountable for it. Number two, a pilot has a beginning and it has an end. Most of the times, the thing that we failed at, it's because there was no end. The pilot kept on and we kept piloting for months, and that creates a half-baked project that eventually fades out. This is not good for the organization, and this is draining energy from people. The third point, a pilot needs hypothesis, okay? Because we don't pilot just to have fun. We pilot because there's a sentence which starts with I. Remember that hypothesis, it starts with I. And we like having the leader actually authoring that. I believe that if I use AI in this situation, this geography, this line of business, to do that sort of things, it will create this outcome for the organization, okay? Pilot starts with the belief. Then we have the KPIs for success. And finally, a pilot has a decision, okay? And a decision means three possible things. The hypothesis is confirmed, and we validate it for growth. The hypothesis is not confirmed, then we kill it. Or there was another, either the tech was harder, or the process was not there, or it didn't work as expected. And then I call it learn. And then it needs to be shared with the rest of the organization. Why is that? Because if you multiply pilots, and we've got hundreds of pilots, at some point, if we don't become a learning organization, we become a piloting organization, and that's very different, okay? So these are the 5 key success factors to run a pilot. Now, what you can delegate absolutely is first, the leader is responsible for finding the other champions and the right people. The leader forms his team or her team. You don't need to be involved into that. The resources are also not a problem. As Lisa was explaining, it's generally something that people do for passion as part of their jobs, and they will find the resources because they are smart people. Same thing, suppliers, they can work with whoever they want. Okay, the qualification of suppliers, that's for the next step. If they want to work with Claude, that's great. If they want to work with Copilot, that's also great. And all the legal IT, IP thing, leave it to the leader to solve. It's an occasion to demonstrate leadership, and that's a way to actually become a better AI leader. So that's in a nutshell how I define a pilot. Then I mentioned visibility. Of course, the condition is pilots need to be visible. Otherwise, there's no decision, and otherwise, you don't learn. And now that we are approaching the end, the key differentiator is an operation. An operation is a pilot that we decided to scale across geographies and across business units. And that is a different game, which requires different ingredients. First, you need a sponsor. And by a sponsor, I mean it's generally C-level, because an AI operation is part of the company roadmap, okay? Pilots can be ignored from the top, operations cannot. It requires accountability, and that's also a very probable cause of failure. When you scale something, it's not a hobby anymore. It is serious. It's not on top of your job. It requires someone who's dedicated to that, plus dedicated time. Okay. As well, we require a dedicated broader team, and then business needs to be represented, global and local, IT, legal, IP compliance. This is the real game. They need to be there, and we need to define who does what in that broader team. Final point is a process. When we scale, what we realize that it would require a new process because it's changing the way people work. And in order to change how people work, it needs to be structured. So the outcome should include a process. Finally, it has targets, which are in that case easy to set because they are based on a successful pilot. So the success of the pilot, it becomes the target of the scalable operation. Finally, it has a delivery and scale targets are by when do we want to be in that additional business? By when do we want to be in that additional geography? And finally, which is also a big engine in driving change, we found that it needs incentive. An incentive, that means you're an AI champion, you will be accountable for scaling that pilot into an operation. Well, this is integrated in your yearly target. And by the way, there's a financial compensation and a financial win for you to it. So that's why we mean by being serious. Now, when that is structured, that enables the second success factor, which is you can delegate everything to that project team. Okay? Our only job as a senior leader is to actually remove the blockers. But now that has been set up on a successful pilot with a target, whatever happens along the journey, trust the team to solve it, and they will do it better than you can do it yourself. So that's how we drive change. First, making that distinction. An AI pilot, it's about the proof. It's proving that you can have an impact on the business. An AI operation, this is driving change, this is changing people, and it's showing that you can actually be successful in changing the way people work so that you get results at scale. Finally, every time we have been successful in scaling, it's because we have revisited the processes. AI will change the way people work. And when we just try to stick AI on the already existing process, it has created a lot of complexity. Now I'm saying that by also being inclusive and co-create the new process by the people who are really the key users, that will drive adoption and that will create ownership. So in the end, the message is, this is very similar to smaller company, except that you always need to be the change by being curious about new technologies and new AI developments. Fundamentally, being curious by meeting new people because your champions have discovered them, talking to them because they don't live in an org chart. So be curious is the first success factor. Second one is at some point, the kindergarten is over. We need to be damn serious about, now we are talking about scaling, and that requires a real structure. And finally, I would say be humble because most of the key changes, it will be driven by someone else. People will create that spark of genius, and you will always find someone who's better than AI than you are. So in the end, you can help them scale, but the magic, you just trust people, be humble, and give them the power to actually make the real changes. And that was all for me, which is now we have a bit of time for questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Let's give some love to Gael. How many lessons? I absolutely love kindergarten. I think it's just such a branding exercise. It's a marketing on steroids, branding it so beautifully. And I love how fun and play becomes serious business case focused AI operations. Absolutely incredible. Guys.
Victoria, I think that's essential because business can be very tense. We have a lot of pressure. The drive to change creates also stress. So as a leader, I think our capability to make people have fun with AI, that's a big component of actually creating adoption, right? So that's why I'm using words like kindergarten, have fun, experiment, because joy of life makes people happy, and happy people are more creative. And as I said, the best ideas will come from other people.
Absolutely love it. And both Lisa and you showed us something. It's energy. You put energy as a leader to create momentum and to drive enthusiasm in others. I love it. Rob, go first. Rob has a question. Feel free, guys, to raise your hand if you have a question.
Thanks. First of all, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Gael. That was terrific. Gael, I have a question. So I also come from a CPG background. So I spent 20 years at Colgate-Palmolive running marketing in Europe and in the US. And like neither of our companies are AI native, right? So how did your marketers develop the capabilities to actually build, right? Like how did they, who did the actual building in Cohort or wherever it is? And then second, like, what were some of the use cases that were, transformational in a world of more of a classic CPG like we came from versus kind of, again, like software SaaS, AI native? I feel like there's so many great use cases and things are fast and it's sometimes mid and lower funnel. Like in our world, what were some of the use cases that you thought were most impactful?
Okay, so I will answer two things. The first one is the champions, they find a way to build their products because they are more advanced and they train themselves, okay? So that means you don't need to take care of that. They will spontaneously find a way, okay? Now, the second part to it is when they put that to work, that's where we need to be best friends with IT because the choice of tools will be very different, okay? Like in most big companies, you will be authorized to use Copilot. So that's where you actually need some help because my Claude pilot, it needs to become a co-pilot pilot, if you want. So I would say be best friends with IT and then choose to train the rest with the authorized tool. Maybe it will not be the right tool, but it will train the mindset, and that's what we want. Second part, from what we have done and from what I've seen with my peers, scaling campaigns to multiple regions, multiple languages, multiple consumers, multiple formats. Hey, that's one of the biggest use case because otherwise it's extremely fragmented. And there's a lot of opportunity to work on that, both on process creation, versioning, adaptation, translation, dynamic content. That's a pretty good case.
Well,
Thank you so much, Gael. Lisa, would you like to answer the same question?
Well, I think I shared some use cases in mine, which I appreciate why I probably wanted something specific to CPG. But I'd say another use case I didn't touch upon at all is, we're using a lot for the sales motion in terms of outbound enrichment, all of that, custom outreaches, as well as for our ad and content creation is very heavily AI generated.
Beautiful. And regarding training your team, have you done any courses? Do you have on-demand courses? Have you trained them? How did you feel that they started to build?
So similar to what's been mentioned, I think there are people who are naturally going to be curious and are experimenting on their own. But I think in a less corporate environment where we probably have less rules than we should have, it was about me going, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to buy Claude a team account from my budget and give that to my team and get them all in there and then send them the free courses and then facilitate the learning environments together so that people could share what they were learning in real time. We did something very similar with Lovable, which we have an enterprise access to build different prototypes and landing pages. And it was another call that was optional that people could get on, watch what's been built, and then have access to go ahead and play on their own.
Love it. So basically you became that trainer, that AI coach who was facilitating, sharing resources, encouraging and creating the learning environment.
And I'm 100% not an expert either. So I think there is a little bit of fake it till you make it, and just, give them access, encouragement, positive reinforcement. And then there is their own accountability that needs to be done there, as was just presented. So, but I think sometimes they're not sure if they're allowed to, or if they can, and so by opening the door, I think it changed the mindset.
Beautiful. Thank you. There are some other questions, guys. Just raise your hand. But I also had a question about people who resist. What was your stance? How did you get them on board? Did you ignore them? Did you fire them? Because we know a lot of companies that go AI native. This is their way of dealing with resistors.
I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
No. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't think I'm there yet, but what I will say is the way that I'm hiring has changed. So, I think the questions I'm asking are very different from, or the questions that I'm taking as acceptable are different, from, oh, I use AI as my thinking partner, to now they can't talk to me about what they've built, what they're experimenting with. I think we're looking for something different. And so to the point of when we are doing assessments and we are thinking about during organizational changes or opportunities for promotions, it's people who are leaning in. It's definitely being recognized. For the resistors, I think in time that will come out, especially when we're reducing heads, budgets, tooling. We need people who are curious, who want to be leaning in and finding solutions themselves. I'm sure, Gael, you've got way more examples with such a larger organization where this is a much more serious, as you've expressed.
Yeah, on that, what I like to share is, Essity is a very people-focused company, and that also matches my values. That's why I was sharing my personal journey, which is not everyone will have the same journey, and not everyone will live on the same timeline. Okay. And just to mention one experience, I had older people who worked for their whole life on traditional market research. At some point, working with the younger nerds, they kind of had a kind of revelation, and then they completely switched. And that was beautiful. So I think the message is there, be very aware and of the stereotypes, because it's not because you came out late to AI that you're not a good person. And we have, by the way, and I observe that in my personal life, younger people who are much more resisting because of fear. So I would say be humble, be gentle, and leave people to walk their own path, right? Because eventually there's one rule: someone with AI will take the job of someone without AI. Okay. So don't force it, but give the chance to everybody. That would be my key message.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. It has been incredible. Let's share some love, because I think incredible insights. And coming back to reality, like AI adoption, it's a human journey. It's a leadership journey. It's change management. And thank you for sharing your leadership styles and wisdom with us. It has been incredible. Thank you all for joining. Have an amazing day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.